Haha, I've got my sound effects back. Welcome to Radical Podcast. Ryan McKenna here, back at you with more radical ideas. Transform the way that we do things, transform the way that our world works, the way that we see our world, the way we see each other, in order to bring about radical change in the world. I started this podcast because I have a lot of opinions on things, clearly. Lots and lots of opinions. And I needed an outlet. I needed to express them somehow. Felt a compulsion. Whether that's ego or the universe, well, it's obviously both. Both are products of everything working together, as I've said before. But the point of it all is to point out the dysfunctions that are inherent in our society, the dysfunctions that are inherent in the way that we do things, the way we see things, and the way that we interact, the way we work together, or more accurately, the way we don't. That's where the dysfunction lies. Because who we are, as I've said before, it truly is connection. We are all connected, physically, through the world. We're all connected to each other. Everything flows through all of us, all life. That is literally, scientifically true. That's what we are. We're connection. It's what we are energetically. If you look at harmonics and the way that waves have to function in order to not collapse. Everything has to fit together. Otherwise, it just collapses and it doesn't exist. So, the point is that we see ourselves as separate entities. As little pilots in our meat robots. That we just walk around and we do things. And we push the controls on our bodies to make them do the things that we want them to do. Free will, in other words. But it just doesn't fit. It doesn't fit with how things really work, which is interconnectedness, and the notion of free will doesn't fit. Just one example of an illusion, but another illusion of separation, because that's what they all are. They're all illusions that we are somehow separated from one another. It's very, very illusory. There is no separation. We're all the same basic consciousness, experiencing itself from different subjective points. That much is clear from the logical path that you have to take through examining the way that we witness our thoughts and the way that our environment acts on our neural structure to make it do things, and the way that our mind creates thoughts to rationalize the actions that we make, the way that our minds make decisions before we're aware of them. All of this implies that it's all being driven by an overarching process or interconnected systems. So there is no separation. They're all illusions of separation. Race, nationality, religion, they're all illusions of separation, that we are somehow not connected to one another. And it's obvious why. Because it benefits, and it benefits the people at the very top within our society, the ones who have managed to figure out, because it wasn't really that complicated a concept, especially back when we were still hunter-gatherers, for the largest or the most shrewd or the most ruthless to instill fear in the others. Fear of separation, or fear of losing that one's protection, or fear of not being selected as a mate, or so on and so forth. And that's carried on. And it doesn't mean that it's inherent in human nature. It means it's something that we learned over time because we didn't have the information to understand our true connection. We had it before egos. It's inherent in nature. It's inherent in cats and dogs, and it's inherent in every other creature that exists. That sense of connection. It's how birds all fly together in massive flocks. It's how schools of fish travel. It's how rainforests function as an interconnected system that no one is in denial of. None of the inhabitants are in denial of the interconnectedness of it all and their dependence on it. We're the ones who created our separation of illusion when we developed egos. And egos are a product of the forebrain, of imagination and identity and language. Because language produced thought. And then we identified with our thoughts. Whether those thoughts at the time were symbols or images or words or sounds, we identified with them. And we began to believe that we were them because we didn't know what they were for. It's like we didn't know what fire was for, so we probably burned ourselves many, many times and slept in the cold many, many times because we weren't able to understand. But once we learned what it was for, we could take it and over time make it not something that hurt us, but something that could benefit us and provide energy and warmth. Steam engines after a time. And then we turned it into explosives and weapons, and of course that did hurt us. So, there's still learning to be done is the point. And our egos are the same way. We didn't know what they were for, so we keep burning ourselves with them because we identify with them. We're not using them. We're not accepting what is. So, the illusion of separation that I really wanted to get into today is hatred. Because there is no such thing. Neither you, nor anyone else, any other life form on this planet is capable of anything like what we think of as hatred. Because hatred is not really hatred at all, is it? It's pain. Hatred is pain. And it makes us, the pain makes us lash out. Because we feel disconnected in that moment from the other person. We feel they don't care about us. We feel they're not connected to us. We feel they're not tuned in or trying to understand or trying to work with us. We feel they're working against us. Like there's a you versus them. And that creates the illusion of separation. And that creates pain. You feel pain when you feel separated from other people. No matter who those people are. Anyone, some random person came up to you out of the blue and said, I think you are a horrible person. You're awful. I hate you. And walked away. No matter what you say, you would feel pain from that. Because you would feel that person trying to separate themselves from you. The same way that you'd feel pain if you tried to separate your arm from your body. And just like an injured cat extends its claws and hisses and hair stands up and tries to chase away anything that's close to it, even if it was an ally or a friend, out of vulnerability and pain. The cat does it because they feel vulnerable and they're in pain, and it's instinctive. It's what is built into us when we feel pain to lash out, to defend yourself. to inflict pain back, to make the threat go away. But as I said before, our conditioning and our biological urges no longer serve us. In the society and the constructs and the level that we're at, if they ever did. And the notion of hatred really was always concocted by politicians, rulers, emperors, priests, and popes. It was a threat to a populace, for the most part, that those others, they hate you. They hate who you are and what you stand for, and they hate it, and they will kill you because they hate you. And on the other side of the line, their rulers or emperors or kings or popes were telling the other people the same thing. That they hate them and that they need to defend themselves. Or they need to preemptively strike, or else the other side will get too strong and it will overwhelm them and it will take them out. It will take what's theirs. Take their women as slaves, kill the men, sever the bloodlines. That sort of thing. Fear, of course. And you see that fear and anger and hatred and the always present threat of them and they and the others is how people have been manipulated. Because, of course, if you didn't swear allegiance to your king or emperor or whatever inbred individual happened to wind up on the throne at the very early passing of his predecessor, if you didn't swear allegiance, fealty, loyalty, whatever, to that person, then you would forfeit their protection. And by forfeiting their protection, in the very same way that people forfeit the protection of the mafia, you are no longer protected from them either. Which means that now you are no longer paying taxes to this lord or king or emperor, and therefore, you are the enemy. Now you are the they. And no one wants to become the they, because everyone knows what happens to the they. They die. Because the poor people are sent to kill them, to protect themselves. And you see how all this keeps going on. Hatred, fear, illusion of separation. The illusion of separation via the direct separation of the person from their life. You see? You will either separate yourself from the others, or you will be separated from the they. You see? Hatred doesn't exist. It never did. It's a word that we created to explain our pain. To inflict our pain on others so that they can see what we're feeling. Because we so desperately want to connect with them. I don't care what someone's done to you. I don't. I know you don't hate them. Because you can't. Because you're part of them. You can't hate them. You can feel pain. You can feel disappointment. You can feel grief and despair. And resentment. Because all of those are different expressions of pain. They just identify the source of the pain. That's all. And hatred doesn't identify a source of pain. It doesn't. It puts the pain onto them. And it says, you are the source of my pain, but that doesn't work. Pain is within you. You feel it. If I take a knife and I stab you, That pain is in you. It's not in me. It might have come from me, but the pain is in you. Moreover, that's a literal pain, and the point then is to find the source of it and correct it. And the source of the pain is the wound. But there is no actual wound. From words and anger and things like that, there's a mark, of course, that's left in the memories. But the healing of that comes with removing the illusion of the separation. And then you'll see that that person is in pain. That person is in agony, in fact. And the more they try to hurt you, the more pain they're showing you that they're feeling. Gut-wrenching, day and night pain. That's what hatred is. Hatred burns. It burns you. It doesn't burn the other person. I mean, it can affect them, but it doesn't burn them. It can disappoint them. It can upset them. But it's going to hurt you most of all, because you're holding on to it. That's the thing. Hatred only exists if you hold on to it. As soon as you let it go, it's gone. Stop hating someone, you stop hating them. You might not agree with them. You might not like them. You might not want to spend your weekends with them. But they're still part of you. And that means that you love them. Whether you'll ever admit it or not, you love them. That means everyone. That means the whole damn thing. You love it all. You have to, because you're it. Love is connection. Love is unity, oneness, togetherness, cooperation, and faith and hope. And all the other things that we label as cliche and naive and not pragmatic and not practical. As weak and impotent. When really it's the strongest thing of all. Massive groups of people all working to the same end or with the same intention can accomplish the most amazing things that nothing else can. Look at cities that we have. The cities of today are a result of the collective work of millions of people. The collective energy of millions of people creating Goliath structures, reaching the sky. Imagine if we turned that energy to transforming our communities to make sense. To making each community self-sufficient and working together. And letting go of hatred. Because it's hatred. The idea of it. The notion of it. The notion that you are in pain because of them. The notion that it'll be solved by inflicting more pain on them. That has to go. Because that doesn't solve anything. Adding more pain to the world cannot reduce the pain in the world. What that means is you're only going to create more of the illusion of hatred by inflicting more pain. Collectively, we can dismantle it. We can see that it's all a hoax by talking and communicating and loving each other. Keep in mind, I'm not saying like. They don't have to be your best man at your wedding or your bride of honor or maid of honor. They don't have to be someone who you have in your life. But just don't hold on to the hate. Let it go. It's not serving you. It's not serving them. It's not serving anyone. It doesn't help to solve the problem. If there's one thing that drives me a bit nuts, frustrated, disappointed perhaps, in the world, it's that we waste so much of our potential and our energies on illusions and on things that are counterproductive to what we're trying to accomplish. We attack and degrade and backstab other people to get ahead, when really it'd be working with them, cooperating, that would get everyone ahead. Everyone could profit by working together. And I know it sounds cliche, I know it sounds cheesy. Yay, teamwork! It's not what it is. It's just about recognizing the power that we have together. Recognizing that we all want the same basic things. We want to feel secure. We want to feel loved, and we want to feel supported and encouraged and inspired. And we want to do something that matters, that means something in this lifetime. I think that's almost universal. Whether we admit it to ourselves or not, we convince ourselves that, well, that's just not the world we live in, and I can't really do anything meaningful because I gotta pay the bills and the meaningful stuff doesn't pay, and so on and so forth. Which is why we have to reconsider what we value. Reconsider what matters. What matters to us as a world, as a society. The way that we allocate our resources. Does having gold-plated yachts matter? Does that increase your connection or your spirituality? Does it make you a more loving, helpful, cooperative individual? Does it make you treat animals and people and children better? Not according to the evidence, not according to the trends we see right now. It makes people behave worse because they imagine that they're once again separated from the rest. Because of their stature, which is an illusion. Because no matter what your stature is, something as tiny and minuscule and non-sentient, to the best of our knowledge, as a bacteria, can end your life. Your power is an illusion, and your stature, in the grand scheme of things, in nature's plan, is the same as anyone else's. They're affecting things as much as you are, if you imagine yourself to be separated in such a way. So why do we pour so much human potential and resources into building things like gold-plated yachts? I'm being a little bit facetious. I'm saying extravagant luxuries that you don't need. I'd like to have a boat, but I'd be happy with just a little boat with an outboard motor that I could putt around a lake in. I think most people really would be too. For those of you who drink, you throw a case of beer in, you go out to an island, and you have some fun. And I guarantee you'll have just as much fun doing that as you will on your yacht in the middle of the ocean, and you'll probably have more. Because you'll be feeling separated, whether you know it or not. That pain is there. I promise you it's there. Look deep inside. Think about other people. Think about how everything you do affects other people. It affects everyone else. And everything they do affects you. We're all tied together through this world. You don't hate anyone. You just feel pain. And you try to inflict that pain on them to make them understand. That's where it comes from. That's what it means. It's a biological reaction to perceiving a threat, feeling vulnerable, feeling scared, feeling disconnected, insecure. It's where it all comes from. But there's no such thing as hatred. There's only love. Because it's what we are. We are connected. Deeply. Constantly. No matter what you do. Even when your life ends, everything just goes back into the whole. Back into everything. And the connection doesn't stop. So don't hate, because you're only fooling yourself. You're only further disconnecting yourself and adding to your pain. Anytime someone tries to sell you on the idea that you are somehow above or below or outside of everyone else, they're selling you a load of crap. Bullshit. And it's probably not for a good reason. So examine all of it. Anything that says, that these people are different from you and they don't want the same things. They do. They want love. They do. Just like you, they want love and understanding and peace. And for that matter, those who order war, those who profit from war, do you think they want war in their homes? Do you think they want war for their family? Do you think they want death and pain for their family or for themselves? No, of course not. So what they want at their core is still the same, but their methods are counterproductive. And like I say, we waste so much human potential and human energy being counterproductive, working against what we're trying to accomplish. Because of our centralized power structure that's easily corruptible. Because of our illusions of separation. Anything, any label that you identify with that separates you from everyone else is an illusion. Every single one. They're ideas. Some are good ideas and some are bad ideas, but they're ideas nonetheless. And ideas do not separate you, because ideas are just that. They just happen. They're not good or bad. But they're ethereal. They're so much dust. When you look at the true, physical, tangible connection between everyone and everything. That is where the truth is, not in the ideas. Ideas can be wrong, as we know. But the fact that everything flows through you is not an idea. It's what is. It's what we see. It's what we know happens. It's what is represented through our senses to us, and the only reality we have collectively. And there's no disagreement that everything flows through you, in the sense that there is no disagreement that your body contains minerals and water and proteins and fats and oils that all come from outside you and all flow back outside you. Everything flows through you and goes back into everything. That is the true nature of us. And the more we deny our true nature, the more we fool ourselves, the more pain and separation we cause. And it's a rotating cycle, because I say, I hate you. And you say, well, I hate you. I say, oh, I hate you. I hope you die. You say, oh, I hope you die of a slow, lingering cancer. And eventually it goes too far. And eventually someone is really hurt. Or eventually violence erupts. And then you have physical pain in addition to emotional. And it doesn't end there. It only escalates. Unless someone stops hating. We just have to stop hating. We have to break through the illusion and see that it doesn't exist. It's nonsense. It is nonsense when compared to the logic and the science of the world. It is nonsense when compared to what we know at the core of our being. What we know when we feel love and when we look at people and we see ourselves in them. When we feel that deep sense of connection with one another. We know. We know it's a lie and we don't admit it. We don't admit it because of our fear. Our fear that if we don't use our hatred to protect ourselves, that we'll be hurt more. What we don't see is that it is the hatred itself that continues to hurt us. Until we realize that, until we accept it, we're just going to keep hurting ourselves. Stop touching the hot stove when you've been burned once. Don't keep touching it until your hand is a blackened crisp. Learn from your pain. Source of pain, it's fear, it's hatred, it's lies, and it's illusion. For you, there's no such thing as hatred. You can dislike, you can disagree, you can work against someone else's intentions, but it doesn't mean you have to hate them. In fact, if what you're doing is for the greater good, or you believe it to help, to be good, then you're working for them too. You're working out of love for them too, because they're part of it all, right? You're trying to make it all better, well, they're part of that. And you're hoping that they'll see the light and that they'll understand. Stop believing in hatred. It doesn't exist. It never did. It's always been an illusion. It's always been used to sell war and sell poverty and sell anything else, that racism. Whatever they needed to sell. Why does racism exist? Well, it's obvious, isn't it? Racism exists to justify war and slavery. They had to come up with some way of telling you that it's okay to hurt and enslave other people. How do they do that? Well, they say, well, this is just the natural order of things. You're better than them because you have white skin and you have these features, and we've done these studies and these analyses and we have these numbers, and they show that, boy howdy, those white people, they sure are better than the black people, so it's okay if we help them out by enslaving them and giving them something to do. That's how they justify it. That's how it starts. You see them as separate from you. In the same way that a farmer sees his livestock as separate in order to be able to kill them. You don't give them names. You don't hang out with them, you don't get attached. What does that mean? You don't get attached? That means you stay disconnected. You force disconnection in order to be able to harm them later. In order to eat, or to feed your family, or so on and so forth. But it's always, always, always been used to justify something that profits the very few. Because people were ignorant, and because you had a largely, we'll say, not diverse population at the time, it was easy to sell white people on racism at first, until they lived with black people for long enough. And they realized there was more in common than apart. And that's why the popular pressure, why the citizens pushed back against slavery. It wasn't just political. Politicians don't do anything unless the citizens demand it. But we saw that we were connected, even if it was buried underneath fear and hatred or the illusion of those two things. Even if our ignorance blinded us for so long in our country's past, we got over it, at least in part, enough to be where we're at today, enough to have a conversation about it, where everyone can take part. It's not perfect, not by a long shot, long way to go, a lot of fear, a lot of ignorance, a lot of belief in hatred. We see that at Donald Trump rallies. But it doesn't exist, and because it doesn't exist, the notion of it will fall apart. It has to in time. Truth remains. Falsehoods dissolve. Because there's no foundation for them to rest on. And just like if you build a house on a marsh with no foundation, it'll sink away. And in not very much time, there'll be nothing left of it. Get eaten up by the soil and the water. Falsehoods are like that. And more so now. If we had had the internet back when racism was initially trying to be sold to people in order for industrialists to profit from slavery, plantation owners and the like, aristocracies, if it had been sold now, with the technology that we have now, it wouldn't make it a day. Because we'd see through it. But they didn't have that then. They had a very controlled information source. It was very centralized, more so than now, obviously. There was no dissenting voice that could take a foothold because no one would touch it. So that's why so much misery was endured. So much misery was endured because they didn't have the information. And they didn't listen to their intuition. They listened to their fear. Their fear of what would happen if these people weren't kept under control, or as Hillary Clinton would say, brought to heel. It's all fear. And fear is bullshit. Fear is bullshit. Hatred is bullshit. It's all bullshit. Not anger. Anger is legitimate, but anger is energy. It's just how you channel it. I've talked about that before too. But give up on hatred. If you use that word, if you use I hate this person, or I hate that person, or you ever say I hate you, give it up. Just give it up. You're causing pain on yourself. You're trying to force a disconnection that can't happen. Like trying to rip your own arm off. So give it up. Give up all the illusions of separation because they're all bullshit. Examine each one. Take a good hard look at the history behind them. What's happened. And you'll see it's all bullshit. And the only reason for all of the illusion, you'll find greed, profit, centralization of wealth and power at the tip of the pyramid every single time. Because it's the way it's worked for a very, very long time in every aspect of our society. It's where corruption lies. It's where our illusions of separation lie. The pyramid stacked up around the earth. Alright folks, my mouth is drying out. So is my throat. So I'm going to leave it there for today. But just remember, there's no such thing as hate. It can't happen because you are love. And that is the truth. Radically yours, I'm Ryan McKenna. Have a great day.